Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video I'm going to be taking you through how to set up your harvest garden to grow any seed of any tier with any requirement with little to no effort at all. So let's get straight into it and I'll take you through how to set it up. Now I've seen a lot of spreadsheets on the on Reddit and stuff like that showing you some crazy configuration of how to do it. I could have done that, but I'm actually going to go with a live demonstration showing you how to build each section and why you're doing it. So without further ado, let's get into a quick tour and I will take you through it all. So to begin with, I am going to go through farming for harvest. So in the league, of course, you get a seed cache every single map, and you have the option to come into the garden every single map. Now, I know a lot of people probably started off doing this, even I did, but once you play a little bit, you're going to realize quite quickly that that isn't too efficient, and it does get a little bit annoying coming in to plant 4 or 5 seeds at a time. So I would recommend the following. While you're mapping, save your seeds up, just put them in a dump tab or something like that. And then when you're ready and you're ready to engage with the league mechanic, grab them all out and then plant them all at once with a massive auto plant in your tier 1 specified grow area, which is what I'm running around in here for me is. So once you auto plant all those, you'll be able to mass harvest and you'll be able to choose all your crafts if you want and then condense the rest into life force, which is super important. So you're going to want somewhere to put all these seeds. Now how big this is will depend on how much you want to farm without coming into the garden. So for me, I like to map pretty quickly on a fast character, and I come in once I have like about 200 or 300 seeds, and that's why I have so many set up. I think I have about 8 of each color. So I come in here with 100 of each seed color and I just put them all in, and I have tons and tons of seeds everywhere. And then I come in after I grow them after 5 maps and I just cut them all down and I do a ton of crafting or a ton of life force condensing. So that's my approach. Your tier 1 grow zone area might be smaller than mine, or it might be bigger than mine if you can manage it. But it is really just down to player preference on how big this needs to be. It's basically just going to come down to how often you want to come in to plant your seeds and interact with the mechanic. So with that out of the way, let's talk about why this is set up this way. So of course we know that the amount of these that you're going to want to have is based on how often you want to come in and how fast you map, but what else do we need to know? So the first thing you're going to want to know is that seeds, despite looking like they can be planted places, can actually not be planted some places, even if this square is in there. So you're going to want to test the bounds of this kind of area, really understand, okay, so stuff can be planted in here, but it can't be planted in there. That's super important because otherwise you won't be utilizing your full amount of kind of grow space, and you want to make sure you're doing that because that's going to allow you to plant more seeds and get more life force for more options as long as there's maximum amount of seeds in here. Otherwise you might get like half amount of options and half the amount of life force to pick between them on, which isn't ideal. So that's step number 1. Make sure that your collectors are in a really good spot. The next thing you'll want to do is put down some pylons. So pylons are basically the infrastructure that connects all of the pieces that we're going to be talking about here together. Now there's a few things that you're going to want to know about pylons, and the first thing is that they can only be connected up to 4 times. This is a super important requirement, which you guys are going to want to know about, so you can't connect it a 5th time. Ooh, that's unlucky. And that is super duper important when you get to stuff like the tanks. And I'll explain that when we get there. But first thing you want to do is connect all of your collectors together. This is super easy. One pylon here. Okay, I'll connect that one there, all that. And you want to connect it all together like a spider web. It doesn't matter like how it's connected as long as it is connected between all of them. So once it's all connected, you kind of want to pick a point to funnel it into. So you'll see here I've got some wires, funnel it into one point. I think all of mine funnel through to here. And that's a pretty good point. So all of that life force juice is all coming down the line into one pylon, which is super good. Now what are we going to do with all of it here when we get here? We're going to direct this to our tank area. So why are we directing this life force, and what is this life force? So this life force is condensed life force. It's basically the life force left over after you're done crafting. And the reason you need this is to fertilize higher tier seeds as a requirement. You can't grow anything past tier 1 without having condensed life force to fertilize it every grow cycle. So now that we know what we're using it for, let's figure out how to store this up so that we can use it when we're fertilizing our higher tier seeds. So I said that we wanted to direct it. You've got a grow zone for your tier 1 seeds of each color. So you got pink, blue, and yellow, and you're going to direct them all into one place. So you can see here that I'm directing all mine over here. I had to chop the yellow one off because I needed area to show you guys how to build this stuff. But this one was coming in here as well, and it was coming into the yellow stuff here. So once you direct all that in, you're going to want some tanks. Now you're going to want a lot of these tanks because damn, oh damn, it costs a lot to cultivate high tier seeds. So here's a tier 2 seed. It costs 33 blue energy here per growth cycle to cultivate. Now you'll see there's 8 growth cycles on this. So 3 times 8, that's 240 life force for just this one tier 2 seed. Now, if you want to do a lot of these tier 2 seeds, that means you're going to need a lot of life force. So you'll notice that a tank can store 300 life force. So that's basically a tank of juice for one seed. Like, that's crazy. So you're going to be wanting to have tons of these tanks so you can kind of like do a massive batch harvest from your maps, store it all up into those tanks, and then have all that flow down into the dispersers, which are the things which distribute this energy to grow your seeds. Okay, so we've established that space is pretty important though, because that's going to allow you to map for longer and plant more seeds at one time and then harvest more at one time. So you're going to need a lot of tanks as well though, but those take up space too. So how can we set these up in such a way where they take up the least amount of space, but we get the most amount of tanks possible, like this, some crazy dense tank spot? Well, I'm going to take you through how to do that. And it really, really does hinge heavily on the pylon rule of only having 4 connections. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is set up 3 tanks in a line. So 1, 2, 3. And the next thing you're going to want to do after that is set up a pylon at the end of it. So with that in mind, you want to then connect that pylon to the 3 tanks, which is super easy. I might just ninja loot a few tanks from over here so I can show you even more building. So the next thing you probably want to do is extend this again. So another 3 tanks. And you can start to see how I'm building those big blocks. And another pylon. And you want to connect those together. And that's good to go. So now the thing you want to do is connect these to your life force that you've been growing from those tier 1 growers. And you want to funnel all that into these tank blocks that you're building. So you're probably thinking, oh sick, okay, I'll just connect it all together. Yeah, awesome. That'll work. Oh, okay, that's out of range. But then you'll also run into the fact that these bad boys are now connected 4 times. So you're stuck. So you cannot connect them anymore. So that's not going to work. So how do we solve that? The way you solve that is by building a little bit of a railroad here to connect these tank blocks together. So then with this pylon here, I can go bang, bang, and I still have 2 more connections, which are perfect for, you know, getting around with. So maybe I wanted to go down here, and then connect it to the yellow. Fantastic. So that's basically going to be the rule. The rule is you can have 2 tank lines connected to 1 travel pylon for your tank kind of slab. And then you can do another 2 tank lines here, another 2 pylons there, connected to a travel line, and you can kind of leapfrog the tank slab, you know, all the way over to your collectors, which was really, really effective. And you can build those massive blocks that I have down here, as you can see, quite dense. As long as you follow that rule, you'll be pretty good to go. You can see that I've interwoven yellow and blue here with the kind of the transporter lines. That's okay. It's not too confusing. It's the exact same thing. You know, 2 tanks, 2 tank lines, 1 transporter pylon, 2 tank lines, 1 transporter pylon, etc., etc., and then 2 tank lines, 1 transporter line, etc. So as long as you set it up like that, you'll be able to have super dense tank lines, and it'll be super, super efficient, which is exactly what we're going for. A really nice, efficient, easy to run garden. So now that we understand tanks, we need to funnel this life force into what I like to call the super grow zone. The super grow zone are basically grow zones that can grow any tier seed without needing to worry about any of the requirements at all. It's just like, turn your brain off, I can put them anywhere, you know, I'm good to go. So what do we need to do to grow these higher tier seeds? Let's take a look at a seed. We need to fulfill the requirement of condensed life force. So this one is just blue. So for the tier 2 seeds, it's either going to have one opposite color. So for pink, it can either have a requirement of yellow or blue. You know, for blue, it can either have yellow or pink, you know, etc., etc. So it's either going to be one of those opposite colors. So just to grow tier 2 seeds, we already need 2 colors of fertilizer. But you're probably thinking, okay, I could just have 2 separate zones for each color and then outline the fertilizer like that. Well, you could, but it's better to just have 1 zone of each, which just can cover any seed in my opinion. So that's what we've set up here. Now, why do I have 3 colors instead of 2? So immediately, we also obviously want both fertilizers for each of these zones so that we can grow any type of tier 2 seed. We can put it anywhere, we don't have to worry about it. But what about tier 3 seeds? Well, those actually require both of the opposite colors anyway, so we needed to do that setup anyway to grow tier 3 seeds. So already we needed 2 of the dispenser types, which we needed to cover off. And then to grow tier 4 seeds, we actually need all 3 colors of the condensed life force fertilizer to make them grow. So ultimately, you're going to need a zone with all 3 colors available to it anyway. So why do I have it set up like this? We'll go down here just to explain it. So when you actually have these collectors, you'll notice that they're a big square, and basically any seed can grow in this square. And you want to basically make it so that you can put your seed anywhere, and you don't have to worry about, you know, like disperser radiuses or anything like that. Like if I have to worry about like, okay, how can I connect this to make sure that I have enough blue for my thing to have? You don't want to be thinking about that. You just want to dump a seed down there anywhere. So the challenge was to create a grow zone which had field coverage of all 3 colors at a time. So you could put tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 seeds anywhere in it, and it would be good to go. It would grow, and you don't even have to think about it. So to do that, you have to set it up like above, but I really do want to quickly cover off the other requirement. So a lot of people have been reading this and thinking, oh man, okay, I need 4 tier 1 seeds to grow around this tier 2 seed to make it grow. But actually, it's a lot easier than that. It just says that it requires 4 adjacent seeds of at least tier 1 to grow. So at least means that tier 2, 3, 4, all of them will work for this to fulfill this requirement. So all you need to do is grow all your tier 2 seeds together, and you don't even have to worry about this requirement, which is what I've been doing up here. Now the really cool thing about this as well is if you're growing all tier 2 seeds in an area, and then you go to grow tier 3 seeds, that requirement is already fulfilled once again. The only thing which you'll have to think about is if you're growing tier 4 seeds, which will require 4 tier 3 seeds around it. So if you're mixing tier 2s and 3s and you've got more tier 2s and 3s, you may have to plan out where you're going to put those 3s if you want to grow a 4, but that's the only thinking you'll ever need to do. Now with this setup, you no longer need to think about the adjacency requirement unless you're growing tier 4 seeds, but let's be honest, you'll be growing 1 or 2 of them at a time maximum. You no longer need to think about fertilization at all, because you'll just have all the types everywhere anyway. So this sounds fantastic. How do I set it up? Where do I sign up? Well, let's build it right now, and I'll explain every step of the way. No spreadsheets required, you can just watch me and we can go along together. So to begin with, you're going to want to pick one of the 3 colors that you want to grow your higher T seed for. So we're doing yellow here, we'll set it up for yellow. Now, first of all, you're going to want to get 12 dispensers. That's the minimum amount that you need to set up one grow zone. Now you can find some efficiencies here, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to go with the 12. And this is what I recommend you grab, just 12 for your first one, and then set up another one for 12, 12. So first thing you're going to want to do is actually find the corners, and you want to put down 1 there on that corner, so it kind of looks there. And then you want to go over to the next corner, and you want to do it opposite. We're actually going to have to move this down by 1 before we start. So you're going to want to do that first. This will make sure that you have enough room for everything and that it's lined up correctly. So there you can see that there. Beautiful. Now it should look like a pretty even square. And what we're going to do is build a wheel pattern out of this so that we can cover everything. So next up, you want to fill these out with another 2. And then bing, bang, boom. You're going to have a nice wheel pattern going around. It'll look like a wheel at least. On the minimap I'm talking here. So now what does this give us? This gives us full coverage of every color in this zone. You can put a seed anywhere and it'll be good to go. And all you need to do is hook everything up. But there is one other thing which is going to help you out here, and that is a really cool little thing that you can do with pylons. So if you've got these up against the wall, you may have a little bit of trouble getting the actual energy back over here because, you know, like it's up against the wall. I was trying to save space, you know. This is a pretty good place to do it. And if you are doing it here, this tip is going to save you a lot of headaches. So because of the requirement that is listed here, requires 4 adjacent wild seeds to grow. Every plant needs at least 4. The actual positions in the corners serve no purpose because they'll never have 4 next to them. They'll only ever have 3 unless you connect these somehow, but I can't see how you do that while maintaining the ability to grow in any area on this. So because of that fact, you may as well just put 4 pylons, just in here by themselves. And essentially this is going to give you a super easy travel point to get to those far reaches of the corners. You're going to be able to channel the 2 colors up there nice and easy. So the second tip that I'm going to give you here is that you can connect the pylon to the core color and then just feed it all off there. And that's how you can get into corners. Once you actually get in a corner and you try and hook it up, you're going to understand both of those tips and they'll make a lot more sense. And you're going to be like, oh, sick, I can just hook it up over to that pylon Grim said to put in the corner. But for this purpose of keeping this video simple, I'm not going to get into the connections too much. This is in a nice open area, so we can connect everything nice and easy and it won't be too difficult. So we'll just set up the colors here so you guys can see. That's the tank one. I've hit the cap there. We're gonna go over to this one here. So first of all, you want to kind of pick a layout for your colors. So we'll say yellow. Okay, we want to set the yellow one up over. So this is blue. Set the blue one up over here. So you need to follow suit and make sure that you follow that pattern and make sure that it looks the same going around. So you can kind of just start setting stuff up. Maybe you use one of these ones here. We'll set it up like it follows that one there. And we can kind of make sure we get around. So you can see that we're able to get around everywhere. Maybe we connect this one to the Grimro pylon, and we now have our 4 colors set up there. And that's full coverage for blue done. Now we're not going to get into all the colors here because you guys get the kind of point. Maybe you do pink on this one and you make sure you follow suit all the way around, yellow on that one, follow suit all the way around. And that's going to give you full coverage of every color. And now suddenly you have a zone that can have any of the requirements fulfilled as long as you keep pretty much tier 2/3 seeds in a decent position, and you're never going to have to worry about it again. Just whack them all in, turn on auto disperse, and you're going to be really good to go. So you're going to be doing your maps, you're going to be blasting your maps, you're going to be getting a ton of seeds. Every once in a while you're going to go into the garden, mass plant them, do a few more maps, and then go in there, harvest all of them. Maybe you get some cool crafts, you smash those crafts through, do what you want with them from the tier 1 ones, and then you condense all that life force down. That's going to feed on over into your tanks. You'll fill all these bad boys up and you'll have a few thousand life force to play with. And then you're like, sick, all right, it's time to do some tier 2 seeds. So you head up to your high tier grow zone, you slap them all down, making sure if you've got any tier 4 seeds to surround them nicely with some tier 3s. And then you're good to go. Auto disperse is on, do a few more maps, and then your high tier seeds will make themselves. And then come in and reap those massive rewards, which I'm sure that they're there. We've seen all those crazy effects, and you're going to be able to cash in on them. Get some crazy T16 Harbinger maps going, maybe get some of those new Harbinger uniques, which could be pretty cool. And hopefully this has helped some people and you guys have found this useful, and you can set your gardens up for min-maxing as well. I can't think of anything else you'd need in the Harvestly to grow anything like faster or harder or anything like that. I feel like this is pretty much the most optimal setting. The only question is if you're going to be able to get more tanks in, or you're going to be able to get more zones in for your tier 1 seeds, allowing you to map for longer. If you guys have any other tips for the garden which I've missed out on, or maybe some big brain ideas, make sure you leave it in the comments and I'll read it and I'll flag it if it seems cool. With that said, hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.